I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up.
Hey guys, Parfax here, and today we're bringing you another build video. All right, let's get started. All right, today I'm gonna bring you guys a video of, well, a build that was pretty popular at one point, but it's kind of lost its favor. But I brought it back and I had an absolute blast. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal build videos. We're going to go over the skills. We're going to go over like the normal type of things. But instead of just showing you the gear, I'm going to show you what I have and a couple other options. And we're going to have like a nice little upgrade portion of this segment where you're going to be able to see, well, if I want to get this build, this is what I'm going to need to start. It's the bare minimum I'm going to need. And then I will show you the upgrades as you go. Now, my gear itself isn't that great. I even started off this with probably below the minimum requirement that you would really want, but we will show you, and I even have some clips where, you know, I didn't even have Insatiable Gravwell on my boots or on any piece of gear. I had a pair of legs, but I didn't have Resilient on them, and I really wanted it. But without all that chatter, let's go ahead and get into it. And of course, as you can see here, we are running Great Axe Hatchet. Now, before we get too deep into it, I am using an axe right now that you cannot get. It dropped off of a mob. I put a video up about it. Well, I think it was earlier this week. And if you got it, great. But if not, don't worry. It is not a must-have. When the dungeon comes out, then you probably do want to get it because I do really enjoy the axe, but it is nowhere near a must-have for the build, and you can craft it anyway. All right, so first, let's go ahead and get into the weapons. So first, obviously, as you can see here, we're doing, you know, like I said, hatchet, great axe, and we're going to go after the great axe first. Now, I know there's a lot of you in the comment sections, and they talk about how bad the great axe is. Well, the great axe is an S-tier weapon for war, of course. Great axe, life staff, BGIG, right? Like that's your standard 3 sets of weapons. You have, you know, sometimes people do life staff rapier, sometimes it's life staff void gauntlet, but then it's great axe warhammer, and then it is IGVG, and blunderbuss has been coming back into the meta. But I see a lot of you guys typing in the comments about how bad the great axe is essentially outside of war, and that's just not true. The problem with a lot of people is they go the typical Mauler's Fury build for open world PvP. And honestly, unless you were fighting big clumps, the Mauler's Fury build is actually just bad. And I understand why you guys are so frustrated with it, but this build is not the Mauler's Fury build. This build can catch bow rapier players, this build can pretty much do it all. It does lose out on a little bit of damage, but we are in light armor, so we're making up for that a little bit. Now, we're not running Maelstrom, which is basically everybody's favorite damaging spell, but I will show you a few tips and tricks to really get your great axe going and getting a lot of damage out of it where a lot of people don't really think to do it this way. Okay, so let's go over the build. Now, for the Mauler's Fury side, we're taking the heavy attacks pull when you go ahead and do it. We don't heavy attack that often, but you will in a few of these little combos that I'll show you here in a little bit. We of course have Enduring Strike. This is probably one of the best passives for the great axe. We are running Gravity. So just when you cause a pull, your foe is rooted. That just means if you pull them and they try to instantly dodge, they're going to stay in place for the most part. This passive is very buggy, and honestly, you can drop it if you really want to. But there's not a whole lot of other passives we really want to take. You can maybe go a little bit more damage on the Frenzy Momentum over here. But yeah, so then we're going to take Gravity Well. We're taking Crowded Well. Now, I don't actually like Unyielding passive. I like it for war. It's fine. The problem with this is you only get the Fortify while the Gravity Well is up. And yes, you're going to be inside that Gravity Well, but it's only up for so short period of time. I actually don't like this passive at all. Even in wars, I don't take this passive. Now, I know a lot of people do, which is fine. but 10% fortify while in your gravity well for a super short period of time to me is not worth a passive. And then we're taking crowded protection and center of attention. These are both just really great if you're fighting any bit outnumbered. Now we are taking a Reap, and this is kind of what the build is built around. Reap is such an amazing skill that nobody uses. It's coming back into favor a little bit, especially I saw, seen a lot of 3v3 arena people using Reap. And this essentially is kind of the very beginning base build for the Great Axe. This is very similar to what we used to run. And the reason why we like Reap is because not only is it a pull, it does slow them if they're under 50% health, and it actually has a lot of damage attached to it. So you see here, you'll deal 70% of your weapon damage and staggers the foes. It pulls them towards you. It has an 8-meter range. You heal yourself when you do it, and it has another 115% weapon damage. So if you Reap them, that is 185% damage if you hit them with both sides of this, which most of the time you will. This is actually a pretty big damaging spell, even though most people don't consider it to be more of a damaging spell. They normally just see it as a catch. And we are running Charge. Now, I will say a lot of builds would probably rather run Whirlwind if you're doing like, if you're using any of the gap closers. You probably want Whirlwind if you're going more of like the Mauler's Fury build, just because Whirlwind is a better get out card. But we have some other ways to get out, and Charge is just so good for catching targets, and it actually has quite a bit of damage on it, and 120%, which would be the same if you take it here and you hit him at point blank range, but up to 140% if you take the Frenzied Momentum. So if you really don't want the gravity, which when it works, it's great. When it does it, it's meh. But you can definitely take that point there. And then we are taking all the passives, but Executioner Speed and Frustration. So we're getting some healing, we're getting some damage, and of course we are getting Bloodlust. This is a very, very slept on passive. You move 20% faster, deal 15% more damage when looking at a foe within 14 meters. I notice a lot of people, when they run the Mauler's Fury build, they'll go ahead and they'll just a Gravity Well, Walk Up, and Maelstrom. Well, if you're going to play that way, you might as well just do Bloodlust, because Mauler's Fury you have to build at the stacks. If you're constantly swapping weapons back and forth, Bloodlust is just a better skill. Now, if you're going, of course, Maelstrom, Gravity Well, and Whirlwind, you're going to take Mauler's Fury because you're not going to go over here. You can't even get this, right? But I love Bloodlust. It really allows you to catch your target. You saw a clip of me chasing down a bow rapier. Now I know he was low health, but you could see just how fast this build can be, and it's actually pretty disgusting. All right, so the next weapon we are going to talk about is the Hatchet. Now you can actually run this a couple different ways. I have ran both Rending Throw and Infected Throw. If you are taking down a lot more bruisers, then Rending Throw is better. But if you're trying to attack more healers, then Infected Throw is better, and it does a little bit more damage. So it's really your preference. This is the build that I ended up the last part of the videos. Well, I don't know where it's going to be in the clips at the end, but this is essentially the build that I went with at the end, because you do get it off cooldown a lot faster. You can actually hit multiple targets with it as you're fighting. I think Infected Throw overall, when it hits, is a lot better, especially with the perk. You're not going to run the perk here on Rending Throw, but the perk on Infected Throw exhausts them as well. So this actually is a very, very good debuffing skill. So play around with it, which you will. If you're going to go over here and take this, then you actually do get another free passive. Then you can take, where is it? What would I probably take here? If you went here, I think I take, maybe you can get Aim Throw if you want to chase down a few more targets. I do like the Fortify passive. This passive's okay. I wish the cooldown on it was a little bit less. But of course, the reduction here is always good too. So you can take it whatever you want. I do like the Aim Throw, but it's not necessary by any means. It's just kind of cool to get some couple kills. So of course, we're taking the best passive here in Berserk, and of course we want Defy Death. Now we have Feral Rush as well. Just another great ability. You can lock down targets. You can even kind of AoE hit with this, which you'll see in some of the clips here. But a very standard true. We're not going to go over every passive. We want the extra critical chance. We don't really need it that much. We do want to attack from the back, but when we're attacking from the front, we do like to have it. And then, of course, we got some other nice little passives here. Now, we've talked about the skills. Let's go ahead and talk about our attribute points now. I'm actually in my bow setup, so we are going to have to go ahead and respec. All right, so what I like to do here is I basically go 300, 200. Now, if you want a little bit of extra damage, you can go 350, 200, or 150, or you can go 350, 150. Now, I like the 300, 200 just mainly because, well, it gives you a nice bonus. This bonus got pretty big buffed here. 10% increase to physical and elemental armor. So we are in light, so we're not going to be able to utilize this to its fullest, but it still is a nice little damage reduction. But honestly, I'm not going below the 150 point passive because I do want to take as least amount, or at least we don't want to take very much critical damage at all. And I think when you're going in and playing this melee playstyle, it is really great to have that. Now, once you get very good with the build, we are running the hatchet, so it allows us to kind of overextend a lot more than some other weapons. So it will allow you to do things like a 50 point passive, you know, or you can go straight just damage. You can go 300, 200, but I definitely don't recommend that because we are playing a little bit more of a bruiser-ish type of playstyle, but in light armor, and we do a significant chunk of damage. All right, next let's talk about the gear that I am wearing. So here's where we're going to start talking about what I have, and then it's going to change a little bit, and we're going to talk about sort of the barrier to entry. So essentially, the barrier to entry is going to be 5 pieces of resilient. We have to have a hardy on our ring. You preferably want here slash damage, but at least a hardy ring. And then we do want refreshing toast. And then your amulet is health. So as long as you can have at least 5 pieces of resilient, you can technically go 4. But we want 5 pieces of resilient. We want health on our amulet. We want a hardy on our ring. And we want refreshing toast on our earring. Now, if you guys don't know, and I'm sure you do, but refreshing toast is just one of the best perks in the game. Your potion cooldowns get 29% faster, and we're going to be relying a ton on our potions. So this is just crazy, crazy good. And then, of course, hardy, because we want to be able to dodge a 3rd time in light armor. Base with just our strength setup, we can only dodge twice before we are exhausted. And if you don't know what exhausted is, which I'm sure you do, you get into this state like here. You can see here, you touch over, you get slowed, and until your bar goes all the way back up, you cannot dodge. So it's essentially a death sentence. So we want to make sure we have hardy and then health, because we don't have a whole lot of health anyway, and it's just the best perk on the amulet by far. Now, when it comes to named items, you can actually do a couple different things. I don't have the smooth bone ring on me, but it comes from Lazarus. You can run that here. But honestly, I would just buy a hardy slash damage ring from the market. This has poisoning on it. That poisoning does absolutely nothing for me. But we want hardy and slash damage here because of our weapons, which I'll show you in a minute. We really want those. Doom's Chance comes from Genesis. So you want to make sure I think it's Genesis. Yeah, it's Genesis. You want to get that. It has refreshing toast, regenerating. Now, everybody over exaggerates regenerating. I don't think regenerating is the end all be all, but this earring is so good, you're probably not going to try to replace it unless you're really, really, really looking to upgrade. And we have 2 different things you can run for your amulet here. So we have the Champion's Amulet, which you can get here from the PvP track. And it comes here on the 2nd rung, or the 2nd checkpoint. And it's really, really good. I'm probably never going to upgrade it from this. We have Shirking Empowerment, which is great. We have Health, which is great. Then you have Stamina Recovery, which is great. Both of those perks I would consider BIS. This is probably my BIS amulet. I was trying to, you can possibly say Divine, but we don't really rely on Divine that much. Stamina Recovery is amazing. We will show you when it comes to the legs. I don't have my BIS pair of legs, but we really want that extra stam because, we just want to be able to get out of there at any point. It's great. Now, if you don't have the Champion's Amulet, don't worry. There's actually a guaranteed drop here. This is the Reinforced Tempest Amulet. So this is Strength, Stamina Recovery, Fortified, and Health. Now, we don't really have a lot of ways to proc Fortify, but it is still a really good amulet, and this actually comes from the Tempest boxes. So if you come up here to Shattered Mountain, and right here, this is... I'm so dumb. Sorry. We go up here to Tempest Heart. it will give you these little boxes when you do them. Make sure you open them when your all your gear set is 625 so that you can get this amulet. And this amulet is really good, and it's not quite as good as a champion's amulet, but it does give you strength, which is a bonus. And it has still all 3 perks are very, very, very good. So if you can't get the champion's amulet, go up there, run Tempest. Once you get your gear score to 600, because it will open, or your expertise to 600, because it'll open up at your expertise level. So make sure you open up them so you can get this pretty awesome amulet. It's super easy, guaranteed to get it. So it's really nice. All right, next let's talk about the armor. So like I said, my barrier to entry here is going to be 4 pieces of resilient, realistically 5. Okay. And specifically, we're going to be looking for a couple different perks. So the biggest perk by far is going to be Insatiable Grabwell. This is going to be a lot of damage. You're going to see here when we start talking about combos, you can really do a lot with it. You can kind of really abuse this perk. This perk is great. Everybody knows if you're playing Great Axe, this is probably the best perk you can have. Next, as you can see here, I actually don't have any hatchet perks. Now, honestly, you definitely want... Oh, let's go to my weapon master here. You definitely want the Feral Rush perk, and if you're running Infected Throw, you want the Infected Throw perk. Now, I know a lot of people like Keen Berserk, but honestly, I'm not a massive fan of it because we are not critting that much, because so many people run Resilient. It's not really needed. I actually have... I have a pretty good set here. I have a lot of people consider this piece of Dex Hatchet perk, Keen Berserk, Resilient, Shirking, Fortification, which is really, really good. Now, if we ran the 350 and then 150, then I would definitely put this on, and I do that every once in a while. But this perk right here, the Keen Berserk, is not needed in my opinion. I don't think it is that particularly great, but it's still pretty good. Other than that, we're not worried about it. And then we do want the Crippling Reap passive. Because we are trying to catch people, because we are, really chasing targets down, this passive is really good. And it's just when they are under 50% health and you hit them with a Reap, they are slowed. Now, because we have it on our Great Axe, it gives us a 50% slow, which is absolutely massive, which is the reason why I like this weapon so much, which we'll go over that in a second. But it's really good. So after you have your Resilient, you want to get a pair of Resilient Insatiable Gravity Well, and then you want to get a Resilient and then Feral Rush. And then if you're running Infected Throw, you want to go get the Infected Throw passive. And then we want to get the Crippling Reap passive after that. And then once you have Resilient on every piece of gear, you have those 4 weapon perks via your weapon or on your armor. Next, we want to start getting Shirking Fortification. Shirking Fortification is really good. We have this here and you can read it. Dodging through an enemy grants Fortify, increased damage absorption by 3.8% for 6 seconds. Each armor piece with this perk increases the potency of this effect. It is very, very good. This can make you, if you have a full set of gear with 3 to 4 pieces of it, you're going to be extremely tanky. Now you can see here we are running the PvP set. It's also the same place that you get the Champion's Amulet. We are running a few pieces of this set. So it's Shirking Heals, Refreshing Evasion, Resilient on the medium piece. And then on the light, we have Shirking Heals, Refreshing, and Resilient. Now, honestly, why I'm running this piece, I have absolutely no idea. The actual PvP, the PvP set is actually better than this, but it had strength on it. And I've just been running it because it's okay. But with 1 piece of freedom, you don't want to run this. You don't want to run just 1 piece of freedom because it essentially doesn't do anything for you. Now, if you can get up to 2 pieces of freedom or 3 pieces of freedom, it can be really good. But honestly, we have the Berserk passive on the Hatchet, so you really don't need freedom at all on this build. And honestly, people are starting to go away from freedom a little bit because we just have things like Shirking Fortification and even Shirking Heals, which you can see here, that are probably just better than freedom because we don't have a whole lot of the stun lock builds anymore. You essentially just have the hammer that does it and sometimes the spear, that you really don't need a whole lot of freedom anymore. But freedom is still a really good passive if you were playing something like a bruiser that kind of sits in the fray for a lot. But honestly, Shirking Fortification is just strictly better. Next, let's talk a little bit about the playstyle. Now, you're going to see this in the PvP clips at the end, but we essentially have a couple different combos we can do. These mobs are way too weak, but we have the only great axe combo. So that means you don't have to swap to your hatchet. So essentially what you can do is you can gravity well. I dodge, roll fully charged heavy into a reap. Now you're gonna see clips here of me absolutely annihilating people with this combo. And it does absolutely crazy damage, but you can actually do it another way. You can actually do a gravity well into a roll, light attack, berserk, and then feral rush. So you can actually animation cancel. I'm not actually great at the animation cancel of berserk, but it's like animation cancel. So you do a roll, berserk, light attack, or you can just do like berserk or a roll, berserk into a feral rush. No, so you have to do a light attack after and then feral rush. Then if you do it that way while they're in the gravity well, you can actually root or even slow them if you have the perk, a bunch of different people, and allows you to essentially just keep their backside while you absolutely annihilate them. You can even, if you have the infected throw, go ahead, throw the infected throw in there, throw the gravity well, do your berserk, and then feral rush into them. And then now that we're inside it, because we have the gravity well on our boots, it will proc the gravity well and it'll explode a second time, and it will do a ton of burst damage. The one thing I love about this build is not only can it do single target damage, it can do very big group damage. As you saw in the very first clip when I started this video, it can do a ton of burst damage to a bunch of people. It can do almost as much damage as the Mauler's Fury with the Maelstrom if you time it correctly with a fully charged heavy into the Reap. It does a ton of damage. Now, one thing I don't see people doing is these mobs are going to be too weak to do this, but I have a clip of it. What you can do as well is if you go ahead and you gravity well them, and let's say you're trying to do a little combo on them, if they try to run out of it, after they dodge, you can actually reap them back into the gravity well to get them hit with the gravity well pop and the pop from your insatiable grav well on your gear. So you can actually do that, and here's a clip of me doing it right here. So keep that in mind. That's also part of the reason why I love Reap so much. This is, if I had to name this build, I would call it the Hatchet Reap build, right? Like, because Reap is just so underutilized, and it does actually a lot of damage, and I think people really sleep on the amount of damage that this weapon can do, or specifically that perk. And people are playing the Great Axe in the way they take their war builds to OPR, and they feel like they're just not doing enough damage, and they're not being, you know, helpful enough, because if you don't have a lot of bruisers, then, right, like, then you're just like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? And you can run this with the Great Axe Warhammer as well. Now, medium armor is a little bit harder, but we can swap out our hatchet for the Great Axe, run the same type of build. Now, we're not going to have quite as much catch because we're not running hatchet, but you can do the same thing. We can go in and gravity well. We can go in, give a shockwave. We can hit a knockdown. Then we do, you know, fully charge heavy into a reap. That's a massive combo as well. That's why I like this build on the Great Axe so much, is because it allows you to really control the playstyle or control the people a lot more, because everybody's wearing light armor essentially in OPR, because medium armor can be, you know, not so much fun to play when there's a bunch of range just shooting you and you can't catch them. And everybody's running the Great Axe builds with Mauler's Fury, which I just don't think are very good in OPR. Now, if you get the right play or you get the right group, of course, it can be absolutely fantastic. But this build can be great in any situation, which is the reason why I like it so much. Last thing I want to cover, I forgot to look at the weapons here, but we have the hook, which is thwarting strikes, keenly empowered, and crippling reap. I really love this weapon. This is really close to what I would consider BIS for this build. Keenly empowered is something you can probably get out, but honestly, I would not craft another weapon. If you can get this once the dungeon comes out, or if you have it already, I'm just keeping this. This is pretty much my BIS for this build. And then we're running the Blackguard's Hatchet. Now, There are a couple other options. You can run something like the Tiger's Instinct. I do have, where's my hatchet here? I do have a Rogue Keen Berserk Keen hatchet that I rolled. Honestly, Rogue is a little bit better, you know, for that type of play style that I like to do. But honestly, if you just get the PvP track hatchet, which I do not have yet, I've completed 93 tracks and I still have not gotten the hatchet yet. It's called the Berserker's Axe, and it has the new backstab passive. Then it has Vicious and Keenly Empowered on it. It is very, very good. It is basically the only 3 damage perk one you can roll. I guess there's a shirking one, but shirking's very gimmicky. I don't like the shirking, you know, lightning and stuff like that on my weapons at all. It does a lot of damage, but I really love just having that base damage. If you don't have that, then I would go Blackguards. If you're gonna roll one, I would probably roll Strength and Rogue. You can get the Tiger's Instinct, which is pretty good as well, but Strength, Rogue, and then you're probably looking for something like Chain. You're probably looking for something like, I don't know. I was debating what I would even want here. I'd probably want the Feral Rush as the perk, Rogue, and then another damaging perk on top of the Rogue. So whatever you can get there. I know they changed some of the perks there on the hatchets and stuff like that, but Keenly Jagged's really good as well. So if you can get possibly something like that, it could be pretty crazy. Could be almost as good as the Berserker's Axe. Or you can just roll the Berserker's Axe perks and try to get something very similar to it, but it'd be pretty hard to roll that because it's actually pretty crazy. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. We will have some PvP clips coming up here at the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Like always, let me know what builds you want to see. I have some more builds coming up, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I'm taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up a new degree, bitch, you ain't seen anything. I pop off with the new rock, electronic, blow the sonic roof up. I'm too honest when I take a few shots. They're too toxic, need to take the noose off. And you cannot save me, cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are half-nots. You are not as tough that you never guess. I don't slack, don't lose, learn your lesson yet. When I get to choose what I do, I'm like a weapon. I'm not sharp as many, but got hard. I'm ready to change scars to envy, to win large and plenty. I like to play fast, never change back. Calling out, I'll pay back, cause I'm great at that. Oh, you cannot save me, cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are half-nots. You are not as tough though. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease.